Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gibson, and I am back. Today is, of course, Tuesday, April 30th. Today's guest is Nicole Bialko, forgive me. An amazing lady, a triumphant lady. She overcame something that some of you out there are familiar with, and that's stalking. She had a predatory stalker behind her who was a pathological liar, a manipulator, a kind of a coward, but more importantly, he was after her. And I want her to tell us her tale of what she went through in dealing with this stalking circumstance over a period of time. She's going to announce some amazing facts that seem outrageous to some of you, but it's quite normal for the stalker and the victim to understand that actually occurs during a stalking relationship or disincentive towards a stalking relationship. Norm Therapy is our signature service at Norm Therapy Inc. But also we undergird our nonprofit, which is Abuse Refuge org. We actually provide them the services, the training, and everything they need in order to provide this Norm Therapy service to the public, oftentimes free of charge. Even though there is a nominal charge for the service now, after spending the first few years not charging anyone anything, of course, to gain the traction, to develop the following, to get good people on board, to create of course, hundreds of accolades and honorable mentions, as well as testimonials. So we've done a lot of work in helping abuse victims around the world, and we have trained norm therapists around the world also to boot. It's been a lot of work. If I look tired, it's because I've been in meetings all day, and I stay, on top of things. And I'm going to continue on into meetings on into the night. But Nicole is special. Uh, she's a volunteer at Abuse Refuge, and I'd like for everyone to meet her. Nicole Bialko, if you come in, it'd be great to have you on. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure meeting you again. I know you worked with Arrow for a while, but it's a pleasure seeing you again. And I'm really just enthusiastic about this interview. I'll tell you, not many people are as brave as you are to come online and say, this is what happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it. Please, if you could, tell us a little bit about yourself, then we'll get into your story, if that's okay with
Yes, sure. So again, thank you for having me. My name's Nicole Bialko. I'm a stalking awareness advocate, currently here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm also a member of the Speakers Bureau for the Ohio Domestic Violence Network. And I've spent the last few years advocating for stalking awareness and advocating that we trust our instincts and never excuse a red flag. And yes, I would be remiss if I did not mention that, Abuse Refuge gave me the opportunity. It was in 2021, gave me the platform. So I had the opportunity to write about love bombing and red flags and share my story. And it led me to writing the article, Stand Up to Stalking. So yes, it feels good.
Congratulations.
Yes, yes,
Shout out to both of us because you're the
yes, exactly. I was a
fantastic.
reunited.
Yes, it is. It's good. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear it. So tell us about that article. What was so impactful about the article that our
Right.
audience wants to know?
Yeah. So stand up to stalking, and I can't remember. It was a message that went out to all the volunteers at the time, I believe from Kelly, just trying to create the theme of stand
Kelly,
up
who's
to
our
abuse.
global executive director, Kelly Dean.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Kelly
Okay, so
Diener,
Kelly
the
gave you a
direct.
platform. Okay, wonderful.
Yes, she gave me the platform, and the idea was around stand up to abuse. And as you know, I had entered, and I was still at that point working with the Court of Common Pleas because of the case that I had going on. So I had some contacts, and I thought, well, stand up to stalking. So, just went downtown and interviewed the director of domestic violence and stalking unit for Franklin County. She was a prosecutor as well as her court advocate, and wrote the article because it was, really, what did you want? Would you want us to know? Tell us what we should be doing before we're on the courthouse steps or
Mhm.
before when we're hiding in our home. So that was really the inspiration was, at the time being a volunteer journalist and having that connection. So, with the knowledge, I wanted to do something, put
Mhm.
something out there about what
I
we should
remember
be
the
doing.
article. I'm absolutely sure now I remember it because I remember Nicole Bialko.
Yeah, it was my
Yes,
last name. Yep.
yes, now
Yep.
I
So
remember. That's a long time ago. Good Lord.
it
Okay,
it was. So yeah, because this
3
was
years ago.
November 2021 when that article, and it was
Okay.
really my effort in trying to get that article more exposure that led me to the Ohio Domestic Violence Network and some of what I've done since.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna have to team up with you now. Good Lord. Good job. What can I say? So tell me, for the women out there and some men, quite a few men are
Mhm.
stalked. As a matter of fact, I remember a time in my life I was stalked, but I'm different. I kind of liked it. I was like, oh, she likes me, But I'm kind of different. Uh,
Okay.
but but when women are stalked, it's normally isn't it a matter of power?
Right, you're right. It's a power control dynamic, and anyone can find themselves in that situation. And the statistics are alarming. When I wrote that article, it was 1 in 6 women, but here we are in 2024, and the statistics are now 1 in 3 women will be stalked, 1 in 6 men. So
Because of
it
COVID.
can.
You think COVID, the isolationism of COVID,
I
and
think it's possible, or maybe I'd like to think maybe it's being reported more. Maybe more people are coming forward to tell their story or get the authorities involved than they had before. But yeah, so it's 1 in 3 women, 1 in 6 men. And you're
wow,
right about the power control dynamic, and it can happen to anyone. More often, the statistics show more often you're stalked by an ex-partner, but it can happen to anyone. It's not just, celebrities or politicians. So,
right? I have really and sincerely been stalked a few times in my life, but I just ignore it and keep going, and nothing has happened to me. But I'm a different kind of guy. But for you, I'm assuming you look like a very in shape person just by your profile here. You look like a nice human being. You're not the boxer out on the street with the glove go, hey, come in, let's have a fight. You're not that person. So, so you being just a normal human being, having a person probably bigger than you, stalk you. Was that the case?
right. Yes. So it definitely was, foot taller than me. So, yep, definitely taller and, likely argued, bigger.
Much
But
bigger
yes,
than you.
yeah, much bigger. But it wasn't even so much the physical stature. It was really just that undercurrent of fear because you're in the situation where you don't know what to do because nothing was working. So it didn't matter how many times I told him to leave me alone or go away. Nothing worked. Not kindness, not cruelty, threats to call the authorities, not bargaining with him. So nothing worked, and that was the scariest part because it's, what do you do when someone won't let you go? What
Yes, you
what do you
have
do?
to. There, I have some suggestions and ideas, but I want to hear what you did. I think it's, I'm the norm therapy guy. So, I think stalking is a big abuse. I think it's a space abuse of your space, of your persona, of your environment. I think and your physical being. I think it's a form of physical abuse too, because having you react to them all the time, and it causes you
Right.
to do what? Let's say you're stalked, well, you were, as viciously as you were, and as frequently as you was. Tell me, um, how did it affect you? How did you change?
Well, there was while it was happening, obviously I'm having a physiological reaction to it. So my body's reacting to the fear, and that, I had shaking hands, rapid heartbeat. I know this sounds, but just severe indigestion that my doctor was treating as like I had an ulcer,
Okay,
and difficulty sleeping. I mean, I could not sleep through the night because he was coming and going. as if he owned the place. And I never knew at some point when he may show up. Sometimes it was like clockwork for certain times, but other times not. So if I would hear a
What,
noise
during your relationship or after your relationship?
after, we're talking about the stalking. Yeah,
So what do you mean?
that period of
How,
time.
how intrusive was the stalking? Did he like come into your home, stalk you?
He he did. So that had occurred as well. But back to the yes, it doesn't impact you physically, because I
Yeah.
felt like a prisoner in my own home, and then
Mhm.
you can't sleep because you think, okay, is he going to be, is that noise? I hear him. So that it did have a physical impact on me, especially at the time, especially, and then
Well,
emotional with the fear and the concern of what is he
yes.
really going to do? I cannot make this stop, feeling that I was in danger. But yes, so of course, there was the unwanted phone calls and text messages. As you know, I had to block him well over 270 times from different phone numbers and emails. And then
Over
there
what period of
were,
time? 270 different phone apparatus over what period of time?
so that would have occurred over about a 3-month period of time, that heavy text messaging, because that's part of where I could have gone to the police sooner, showing that pattern of conduct, showing my timeline, but I didn't. So I
Right, but you
dealt
were
with it
new at being stalked, right?
right, and I dealt with it a lot longer because, well, one, I don't think people often realize, well, I can call the police right now because I think you think, well, he's not hurting me physically. I don't know. And then there's a lot of embarrassment and shame. You don't want the police to have to come to your home. You don't want that. And I had myself convinced that maybe I could eventually make it go away, but I was wrong. So there again, the unwanted phone calls, text messages, and then of course there were cards and then letters and gifts and flowers and food, either personally delivered to my home or sent to my home from him. And that went on for a period of time. And then what made me realize that I could not solve the problem on my own was when he entered my apartment. I was away for a weekend, exactly 47 hours. I had went away to meet a friend, and when I came back, I'm someone, I don't know how you are, but when I everything has a place. So I was
Absolutely.
away. I needed to put the clothes away, but get started. And as soon as I walked into my bedroom, I smelled cologne.
You knew he had been there.
Yes, and then I found what I would go on to find 18 different we'll call them love notes all throughout my apartment.
So he's a
Every room.
signature burglar. Okay.
Yeah, it was very clear. It was his handwriting, and based on the messaging, I knew it was him. And that's when everything changed. When I talked to the police officer, because he believed me and he said so, and that's when everything escalated in a way that I could not have predicted. With, okay, there's a detective who wants to talk to you, and then I talked to the detective, and then a prosecutor wants more information, and that's when I went through the process of petitioning the court for a protective order, and that's also when it went to a grand jury and he was indicted and arrested.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so during this process, and I'm happy that happened, but during this process, 270 different numbers in or blocked attempts in 90 days. So to me,
Give or take. I don't have my timeline in front of me.
that's like three a
Um,
day. That's like three
yeah,
averaging.
but it was intense. So I would block, and then it would immediately come back with either a new phone number, and also he would somehow, and I'm not sure how this you could do this exactly, but it would come through as a text message, but not from a phone number, but from an email. And that's why it ended up making it so easy to count, because every time I would block him, he would come back with the same email domain plus one. So it was easy.
VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol. Um,
Okay.
VoIP is what that is.
Oh,
These are virtual telephone switches, a VoIP service, and you can just get as many numbers you like. And sometimes you can send text messages from whatever, it doesn't matter the platform. It could be a phone, it could be email, it could be any type of communication system.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you're going through. Explain to our audience, especially the women, how are you feeling? Are you afraid to go grocery shopping or getting your hair done or visiting friends? What
I
are your,
was,
what are your
I
fears?
was, I was more afraid, wasn't so much leaving. I was actually more afraid there. I was more afraid to have anybody over, to have company, to have my brother over, to have a friend, because I didn't want to put anyone else in danger. And so that is what I was more fearful of. And I'm sure you're well aware, abuse is isolating, and
Isolation.
it's isolating
Isolation.
for a reason.
Mhm.
It gives the abuser the upper hand.
Yes.
So when I
No,
was alone was when everything would happen, when he would show up and knock on the door and not leave, while calling, while texting. It was when I was alone. Because I remember very clearly there was, while at the height of all of this, I was at my counselor's office, and and I wasn't getting any text messages. And I remember holding up my phone and saying, "See, it's like he knows I'm not alone." And that's a little bit,
well, no,
so
it's
from
oftentimes in abuse. It's what's not there that's more important than what is there. What's not
right.
happening, oftentimes that's more important. So you're right.
Yeah, so for me in this scenario, what I was experiencing, I was more afraid at home alone than
Mhm.
I was maybe going out in public, or being out. I was more afraid there because that's when it was all occurring, when I was alone. So I was more concerned about somebody coming to my place and somehow putting them in danger.
Okay. So were you, I know this is kind of a sensitive question to ask, but were you dating during this stalking period at all?
I had not really. I had went out on one or two dates with one individual. And I remember later getting a text, it was very clear that he saw me or somehow saw my vehicle somewhere. So, but no, because it was really just all consuming,
Mhm. Mhm.
it really becomes about protecting yourself. I remember segmenting my day to, okay, focus on work, because I have a big, good job. I got things to do during the day. Focus on moving, because
Mhm.
I was moving, and then focus on protecting myself.
Absolutely.
So dating during that time, there was too much chaos,
Mhm.
to even
If you
really.
had dated, it would have been something that you would always suspect that there's something looming around the corner.
You
And
got it.
that would have probably
Exactly.
compounded the circumstance.
You
So
got it.
for not, I mean, you seem like a very strong, you do. You project yourself well. You're very smart. You actually know what's happening to you, and you can articulate it. Most people can't. So what advice would you give women and men out there, but mostly women? What advice would you give them about a stalker?
Well, it goes
Preventative
back.
maintenance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it goes back before, because that's why I always say trust your instincts, never excuse a red flag. Because in my experience, I knew immediately something wasn't right, that something was off, and I ignored that intuition. So I think a lot of times it starts there. Whether you say that's that, your gut, either the hair on the back of your neck, or you're going, I don't know how I know, but I just know that. If you can, right there, so that's
I
always
don't want
my
to be
first.
stereotypic when I say this, but this is something I have noticed and experienced with women from all walks of life all around the world, friend or otherwise. Um, a woman's need to make sure that a man is okay is sometimes more uh, powerful than her need to be safe
Hmm.
uh, on her own. I mean, sometimes a man will tell you exactly who he is. He will show you
He will show you.
exactly who he is.
He will
And
show you. Yeah.
he'll say, I'm the worst human being on the planet, but I'm trying to get better. And you're just the most amazing woman. And I could just fall right in love with you. And sometimes that's what women need to hear. The women who are not um, so protective about who comes into their life. Because men will tell you exactly what the problem is. But I've seen women overlook it every single time. And a lot of our abuse cases follow that pattern. Please tell me what your experience was, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, and I think a lot of it is, as much as I say trust your instincts and never excuse a red flag, we have to be confident enough to do so. You know,
Okay, stop
it,
and applaud now.
we have to be confident enough to do so. And you bring up a good point, because you're right. They're telling us they're doing something that's making us fire off. But I think a lot of it is it's that need to be loved. We want to believe someone when they tell us these nice things and that they love us. We want to believe that. And I think that is therein lies some of the concern, that we can't, I always say, we can't starve ourselves of our own self-love and compassion to the point that we're willing to put ourselves in literal danger to receive, abuse disguised as love, because you just touched
Women
on that
nurture,
yourself.
women nurture, women
Yes.
nurture. I this is all over the
So
world.
we've got to find a way to be confident enough to believe in ourselves, to trust that intuition. I think a lot of it starts there, and that's a different side to the conversation. But then we can also talk about, okay, now you're here. Maybe you did ignore the intuition. Maybe you just really wanted to believe them, or maybe you just fell head over feet. These things happen. Now what do you do? So it's kind of two sides to the coin. But I always say that, that I think that's part of it. If we could just be confident enough, maybe we could stop it in its tracks. I wish that I would have been able to do that, and it was because of a lack of confidence. And to your point too, sometimes there's certain things going on in your life. Maybe you're a bit more insecure or vulnerable because something happened, and an abuser sees that as a welcome invitation. They can be opportunists.
No,
You
they
know.
are an
Okay,
abuser
there you go.
more opportunist than anything else on the planet because they actually seek out women who will get past their first or second sentence. Like if they say,
Mm.
listen, no, it's good meeting you, but maybe we shouldn't get together because I'm just a terrible person. I've been in some terrible relationships. Like you said, your guys say I'm a Marine and I got PTSD, and they start enumerating all of these different red flags to you.
Red flags.
But in women, from what I've noticed in the patients we have around the world, but also in just walking down the street everyday life, is women have this thing. My mother used to call it an ability to want to fix everything. They see a guy that's broken, that broken bird syndrome, that broken wing syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
where a guy is broken and she needs to mend him just a little bit. I heard a comedian once say, then I'll get back to you. A comedian once said, he said, when men go out and they look at women, and let's say she's with another man, that man says, that's the kind of woman I want to be with. But when a woman goes out, because her DNA is about different things that men's DNA is about, are about. And that is, a woman would say, it's just a funny joke I like to tell sometimes. He says, women say, I, I, I see that man right there, and that's the one right there I want. Not because she's going to take that other woman's man, but they focus, you guys, forgive me, focus on things differently than men. We inherently or innately feel that there's just a lot of women out there and we'll just catch up with one day that fits with us. A woman finds her mate in all that he presents, and it may be, in your case, felonious and erroneous, what you were being told. And
Mm-hmm.
but he's hitting all those right buttons because a woman, I think, from what I understand about women, I'm not one of those guys who understand women, but I know how I get along with them. That's what I'm going to say. But a woman thinks more with her emotional quotient or her emotional intelligence than with her intellectual prowess or understanding about men. Because we play vulnerable to get you to like us. We got this big, strong guy, a foot taller than you, playing vulnerable. And I think you mentioned our pre-interview. I think you mentioned something about love bombing. Tell me, what was that like?
Yeah, so love bombing, as you know, it's a manipulative technique,
Oh yeah.
and for me it was, very heavy with the compliments. So, those over the top compliments. Oh, you're the prettiest girl I've seen in real life. It came with these grand gestures, gifts that made me feel uncomfortable, just too much and too soon. The relationship felt that what might happen in an ordinary course of a relationship, he was trying to make happen within the first few days and weeks. So, it was there, the grand
So,
gestures, the compliments, the excessive gifts, and all of that is really designed to build or build those feelings of obligation and dependency. So that's what's important to know about love bombing.
interdependency in this particular case, because what they do is they automatically choose a drawer in your house or a place on your bathroom sink where their stuff goes. And that's one of the things I used to watch out when I invited women to my place when I before married and kids and all that. But when I invited people to my place, they would leave something automatically or put something on my shelf in my cabinet or put something over here or pick something up and move it and put it over there. Those are all signs to me like, oh, in my head, because of course I was younger then, but she's got to go. In my head, I'm thinking this one's got to go because
Mhm.
that's too much possession in the first 3 days, 2 days of knowing me. So you went through this, and this person was kind of calculating, calculating, and in placing himself within your environment. Back in
Absolutely.
demolition, calc in place, calc in place. So calculating an emplacement of self in your world. When he strategically did that, were you were you bothered by it? Were you disturbed? Were you pissed off? Were you excited? Because some women go, "Oh my God, he really likes me. He wants to stay with me. He's but look, there's his shaver right there." Some women don't know that they're being manipulated. So what happened with you?
Well, I have to say first that your comment, you were so spot on because I was reading some of what I wrote. I've kept a journal, so I was reading some of what I wrote just to refresh some of my memory. And one thing I wrote was that he had some a watch that he alleged was very special to him, and that he was going to keep it at my place for, safekeeping. And I remember there being like his dirty clothes in my laundry basket. So you're so spot on when you say that. It was very calculated and it was all very early on. And for me, and that's why it's taken me a while to accept, but for me, I knew it wasn't right. I'm saying you couldn't possibly know or feel these things about me. This is too soon. This is too much. I remember he sent me flowers to my place of employment at the time we were in an office. And I had this overwhelming feeling that the flowers weren't genuine, that I was being claimed. So
Mhm.
you see that therein lies, I saw it all coming. I didn't get out of the way. And a lot of why I continue to do this to this day,
Let me ask you
is
a question
because,
about that statement right there, Nicole. Hold on, because I'm putting my norm therapist hat on, if that's okay.
okay.
And that's this. Um, when he was doing this to you, had you ever been stalked before?
So I had, well, I had a college relationship where he had a very hard time letting it go. And I remember it was in college, so there were times where I would leave a classroom and he was there. He would find me in the parking lot. It was shorter lived. And at that point too, we were young and passionate, and
Yeah.
it did stop. So there was that experience. And then yes, I had a relationship. Oh, I was early in my career. I'd say I was maybe mid 20s. And yes, that individual had a very difficult time letting go where I had some concerns like, oh, should I do something? And then and eventually it did stop. So
But did
something
you do
about the
anything about
choices
both of
I've
those?
made. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
it's not you. It's not about the choices you've made. No, not at all. Let's not blame you. That's what most women do who've been stalked, even though you're in advocacy.
Well, or I'd like to think maybe I had a lesson that I
Yes,
hadn't quite
there we
learned.
go.
And so this last because I remember early on thinking, gosh, you remind me of so and so. But
Yes.
so clearly a lesson that I needed to learn. There was something and that I hadn't quite and I needed to work through it. And now, I mean, look at where it led me. So
For any kind of abuse. It doesn't even matter whether it's stalking, whether it's physical, psychological, narcissistic. there's the underlying theme to all abuse. Doesn't matter the abuse, financial abuse, it does not matter. Child abuse, sexual abuse. The underlying theme of all of those are fear. Fear grants the abuser the power over the victim. It is just that simple. And you said it in your oration a minute ago. You said that I didn't have the confidence to do some of those things. And the reason most people don't have the confidence, and you know this already, Nicole, because you're an advocate, and that is because no one's ever told them how. No one's ever said, hey, if you are in an abusive relationship, this is how you measure your courage or measure your fear. Matter of fact, it's even better, just throwing my 2 cents in and I'm coming right back to you. It's even better to be corralling your fears than your courage and strengths. Because in your fears, once you can recognize your fears and then learn to control those fears, that's better than any amount of what you manufacture in your brain housing group or what other people manufacture in their conversations of what they think courage actually exists of. Because courage is not, it's like Mandela and every other famous orator that's ever said it, is that courage is not about being gallant or being this courageous guy jumping over the moat and saving the princess. Courage is about controlling your fears and having a response to a set of circumstances instead of a reaction. That's what courage is all about. You exhibit courage just in your natural self. You do know that, right? You're very straightforward. You look people right in the face. You have kind of that intimidating look now. Was it always this way?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll have to ask some people and get back to you.
There you go. But no, you
But
do. You have a very powerful look about it. You do. When I first met Kelly Dean about 10 years ago or so, she had this deer in the headlights look about her. Just this pretty blonde girl who was just amazing. Everybody loved her. They liked her. She was a happy-go-lucky person and blah, blah, blah. But there was something missing. You know, we have another person, Nicole, in our organization, Nicole Leonard. She's the head of human resources over at the hiring part. And I always watch Nicole. She's the smiliest, nicest, wonderful human being you'll ever want to know. But then as soon as something happens that just isn't right, she gives you that cut in the eye. She
Mhm.
cut her eyes at you. And you know that that nice girl is still there, but that cut eye is saying, don't push it. And I think that ability to be able to change, which you watch Kelly now, quite different than that person she used to be. Very straightforward, clear, the nicest human being in the world. But if you push her the wrong way, she's ready to deal with you. I think that you learn that over time and through circumstance. And sometimes, I would like to say this is the better way. When your dad, he may have done this, sits you on his knee and say, sweetheart, if anyone treats you different or worse than I'm treating you right now, you need to run and let your father know about it. You need to tell me about it. We need to have a talk. I need to protect you from these type of people. Most women don't have that dad that says, come here, sweetheart. Listen, forget it, whatever you think you know about that. I'm going to tell you what I know about it, and we're going to have a good conversation about it, and I'm going to listen to you. I, I think that that's a big component that's missing in a lot of relationships where there's abuse, especially male to female. Would you agree with that?
I can't really speak to that. Yeah, a very good dad is a protector. I did have a,
Okay.
I
You
mean,
see, and
and he
that's
is.
a part two to that. You're right. You're on part two.
Yeah, I'm a strong father who, so I can't speak to that
Well,
exactly.
then let me
So.
speak to you. I'll speak to that because that's the other side of the coin. When you do, because if here's the thing. Let's say you got the greatest dad in the world. He told you all these things that I'm saying, the sitting on the knee part and all that, and I got you covered, I'm protecting you and all that. And then you go to college and you have this weird relationship, like, and this guy keeps showing up like you did. And you got to get over me. Come on, keep going, move on to the next thing. And then you finally went away. And then you get out into real life and you knew the adult things, the adult job, I think you mentioned earlier. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're confronted with another human being, but this is a choice you made to be with this person initially, And dad may know about this guy. He may know about the stalking and all of that. It isn't that he didn't do a good job. It isn't your father or your mother, according to most child psychologists and psychiatry. It's not your mother or father who really shape you. It's your environment. Your environment is more powerful of a shaper than anything else. And oftentimes these people go off just like you did in college. And now you can do stuff without mommy and daddy looking. And but you're still respectful to your family, to your name, and to yourself. But you want to dare, you want to experience new things, you want to enjoy life as a young person. You want to do these things. And that sometimes leaves you vulnerable if you don't take those life lessons learned from your parents and from your environment or bubble in which you grew up in. You don't take those with you. Would you say that a strong woman who had a strong dad like yourself, clearly understanding when somebody's can't let go because it's happened to you a couple of times, you don't know the exact remedy or the exact response to it, but you know something's wrong and you got to do something until it avails itself to you. At some point, you said there was a eureka moment when he entered your home, and then all of a sudden, that support mechanism or mechanisms and support circle that's waiting for you, the police, the prosecutors, the whole system that's designed to protect you and other women as well as men from stalker or that kind of crossing the line behavior. So there are two schools of thought here. Sometimes the most confident woman on the planet, like yourself, you see, I love the way you present yourself in this, can get caught up in the same things as women who are oftentimes viewed as weaker and not as
Oh, yes.
informed as you are.
Yes, it can happen to anybody. Yeah, anybody can find themselves in a power control dynamic, find themselves, in the wrong situation or have them put themselves in danger. Yes, absolutely. It can happen
What
to
about your
anybody.
security?
I'm
Security.
sorry.
Did you want to just shoot somebody or something or to protect yourself? What did you want to do? What extent were you willing to go to in order to protect yourself?
I just wanted him out of my life. I just wanted, and when this is happening to you, there's no, it's very difficult to find any peace so that you can find that moment of clarity to know what you want to do because there's so much chaos around you. Like I said, how I had to segment my life. I mean, it was constant, whether it was the phone or the knocking at my door. So really it was, I wanted it to go away and I wanted to get back to some sort of normal existence because I was always so afraid. I didn't know what exactly he was capable of because I didn't know until after the criminal case had gone underway. I had suspicions, but I did not have confirmation that he wasn't a Marine until. So at the time, you're thinking, okay, this isn't somebody who says they were in hand-to-hand combat in the Battle of Al Fallujah. You don't know what they're capable of. I guess for me, it was just more about making it stop,
Okay.
making the chaos stop.
So when it finally cessated a bit and slowed down, because he was, of course, now in the court system, and he
Yes.
was awaiting trial, maybe was he out while he was awaiting trial, or was he locked up?
So, yeah, so the grand jury indictment, and he was arrested and spent 5 days in jail. And the original felony charges were menacing by stalking, violation of a protective order, and burglary. And then after a year of, trying to maneuver the court of common pleas, there was a plea deal. And there was a plea deal of criminal mischief, which
Kind of a
at
misdemeanor.
I'm sorry.
Isn't it kind of a misdemeanor?
You're exactly right. It's
Mhm.
a misdemeanor, and it's almost like it's like a minor property damage incident. Graffiti could also be criminal mischief. So it was a tough pill to swallow, but it
Why
did
do you think it
allow
was
me
elevated?
to.
Why do you believe
I'm
it was
sorry.
ground dated? I mean, ground dated. Why do you believe it was downrated?
So, as I understand it, what I had learned along the way was that, for stalkers, this is a it is like a full-time job for them. So they try to at least, and now you have to understand, I'm speaking to what I knew of this venue in Franklin County, but they want to try to keep the stalker employed, because look at what they do with their time. At least keep them employed so they're not doing this, I suppose, 24/7. And it was
Mhm.
my understanding from the prosecutor assigned to my case that this was, at least in the venue that I was in, a typical plea deal and decision. So, and when you know about the Court of Common Pleas, so the prosecutor's hands are tied to that original police investigation. And as I was told by the prosecutor in my case, because I had attempted, can you do more? Can you, canvass for witnesses, look for surveillance? Here, look at what I'm telling you about this individual's history, because I had found been given police reports that he had exhibited this behavior prior to me meeting him. But the point of the Court of Common Pleas is they can only do for what he did to me. So those prior bad acts, didn't matter. And I was told, well, there's no crime scene, there's no dead body. And that's the thing with stalking. And one of the statistics you had mentioned, earlier, there's this, the statistics there are alarming. I mean, 76% of intimate partner murder victims were stalked prior to their death.
Yeah, it's a precursor
So,
to something much worse.
yeah.
Need
So,
to women need to know that. Women need to know that if men are prosecuted for something like this, which brings me to our next question, because we only have an hour. I can speak to you for hours. I'm going to start a podcast in the future where after funding of Norm Therapy Inc., I'm going to just sit for 3 hours and talk to just different people about different. I love this, but
yeah.
I think somewhere in your narrative, you were saying that he wanted to expunge his records.
Right. So there was the plea deal, and I will tell you, not every venue may be the same, because I was talking to a judge in a county north of Franklin who said we always make them plead a menacing by stalking. So again, it depends on the venue, the judge, and maybe the information at hand. So I was able to give a victim impact statement to the court, though, in November 2021, when that all had resolved itself. And
Okay.
then in March of 2023, that's when he attempted or started the process, because he wanted the record expunged, which for me, obviously, I didn't want that out there. I was in hopes of having a paper trail to help other people. So when that woman is going, I don't know, something doesn't seem right, she could maybe come across something that wasn't there before. But
Cool.
he was attempting to get the record expunged, but it still, at this point, should be available to the public. It wasn't, that request wasn't granted.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. That is really something. Um, Now, expunging the record would just say to that court jurisdiction, as well as the federal authorities, that this person was never in this circumstance, and it can't really be found unless what?
So there's a lot to that, from even when I talked to the prosecutor, the new prosecutor assigned. So I can't really speak fluently to that, but what I can tell you, because I know it depends crime to crime, there's a certain amount of time that has to be waited before you can even petition the court. I'm sure there's a lot out there that I don't know, but what I can tell you is it would have been eliminated from either you or I going and going to the Court of Common Pleas and finding that case and seeing, all the elements to it, from the charges to the plea. So someone like me or you, we wouldn't have been able to see
So
that.
that leaves a lot of women vulnerable. And it,
Yes.
unless he proved his innocence, why would somebody expunge that? I don't get it. Why? I mean, just a petition to expunge just because you don't like that it's there, that's something you were guilty of, or is it?
Right. I don't, and honestly, and I had asked the prosecutor that too, because to my knowledge, and even this prosecutor had confirmed, it really shouldn't have impacted his ability to gain employment. So you could see that may be one reason. But you're right, because you think expungement. I just had a friend say this to me. You think, oh, you did something when you were young and,
Yeah,
immature,
take it
and
off your
now you're an,
record. Yeah.
and now you're an adult. That's what we think of expungement. So I don't know his his true motives for wanting it expunged.
Well, I think that if you already have a charge, and if he's, forgive for the lack of a better term, speaking in a mental health term, if he's being lackadaisical about that, if he's sick in the head about doing this, about stalking, and perhaps he's already engaged in another relationship where he's stalking again, and he knows that if she becomes self-aware and create the base of courage needed in order to report him, that it's going to compound on him. So he's probably trying to eliminate it for that reason. I would think that
It
would be
could
a
have been,
great motive.
yeah, it could have been just a reason to disrupt my life, and have me
And frighten
back
you more from afar.
in the court. And but you're right about the statistics there, because 1 in 3 stalkers have stalked before. It's not really something that you likely stop doing
Doing
because of that.
exactly.
Yeah, because of that obsessive manic nature of it. So.
I need to ask you some really interesting questions, and I'd love to get your candid opinion. Do you think women's self-defense when it comes to a stalker, excuse me, a stalker, do you think it's relevant here? You think it's something women should do? Karate, self-defense courses, buying a weapon, having a knife or a mace. What do you think are some of the things that she should
Well, yeah, because I think you have to go about protecting yourself, and that is one of the elements as all this happens. Your safety and
Mhm.
support becomes your priority. Some of what I had recommended in the article was obviously, that a camera for your car or your vehicle, a camera
Mhm.
for your home. But yes, all of those things, because not only that, look at the benefits of going and learning self-defense. Well, that's exercise. You're going to have natural endorphins to feel good there. And then I think, we're trying to find ways. Well, how do we build confidence? Well, I would say one thing you're doing there would be confidence, and it would be a confidence builder. And, yes, it is a way. I think if you find ways that you can feel that you can protect yourself.
Well, I've taught a lot of women around the world self-defense as well as the use of weapons and other things over the years. But it's been more on a personal, person-to-person thing. Hey, teach me how
Right.
to shoot a gun, teach me how to use a knife, and all those things that, and I really was in special forces. So we learned these things and use these things throughout
Right.
our career and, in the military. Um, and, um, and I've helped a lot of women do that. And I've oftentimes found that as soon as a woman takes a step in the right direction of protecting herself, she becomes a whole new, for lack of a better term, beast, a different kind of beast. Not the kind that you rub and you just cower under, but that you pet her and you make it bit. And I think that, and not to be so graphic and so, dastardly about that, but some women need to have that noticeable change within them. I've oftentimes seen when women are too demure and too soft spoken, that men, especially predators, take advantage of them. If she's intelligent, soft spoken, and a bit demure, they tend to, not all men, but abusers tend to gravitate towards that person because that person possess some of the trademark characteristics of somebody they should stalk or somebody they should be a narcissist with, or somebody who will people please them, or other things that happen, those triggers for them to want to select that woman. So there is a selection criteria for of course, stalkers. What would you say is one of the main things about stalking that was an attractor for your ex to become your nightmare? What were one of the attractors that you saw?
I Yeah, I don't know why he was exactly the way he was. I think there may have been mental health concerns. It may have been something that I believe, had always done, in terms of how he had treated women before me and then after. I don't know exactly what makes a person want to do that, other than just that manic, obsessive compulsive type of behavior. But what I can say from stalking on the opposite end is I do think it's often misunderstood, both socially and legally. And
Hmm.
from our perspective, maybe not ours, but for some, I feel, stalking can sometimes it's been almost a joke. Oh, a stalker. Oh, laugh about it. Oh, let's make fun of someone and call them that. And I
Hmm.
also think socially we've in movies and in television and books, I think it's been romanticized.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
That we have the meet cute, and then the girl says no, but the guy will do
Keep
anything.
going. They were talking about the Notebook the other day, how the one character
Yes,
just
the Notebook,
obsessively
when
pursued
he
her.
hang yes, we see that. Or even my I was a favorite movie of mine in the 80s, but Say Anything, he stands there with the boom box, but if the reality is he's there uninvited,
Yes.
she had been telling him, no. So I think it's been romanticized. And I think even to my point was, you don't even know that you can or should be calling the authorities. And the reality is when they show up unannounced and uninvited, you call.
You
You
think
tell
Oedipus
them,
have anything to do with this?
I'm sorry.
Do you think the Oedipus complex of the male and the mom, and how does he treat his mother? How did he treat his mom?
I can't speak to that because when I knew him, his mother was already deceased.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But what I can tell you is he always had a very low opinion of women. So the every woman in his life was either one of two things, a liar or a cheat. And I remember very clearly one time he said that now he had indicated it was in the past, but I don't believe that a sentiment like this changes. But he said that he didn't feel that women were worth the dirt underneath his shoe.
Ah,
So yes, there was certainly a lot of animosity and hatred toward women, but I really can't speak to how that originated
and
or generated in
he
him.
objectified women all the time and put them as a lower level of existence in his eyes. And he actually told you that. He shared that with you. Wow. That was a red flag. Was this towards the end of the relationship or the beginning of the relationship?
Maybe that might have, when he had let that one slip, might have been more toward the middle to the end. But again, he had indicated that was like a feeling that he had in the past. But again, I don't think that's something you overcome. And so
I would love to work with you on modeling a personality, an abuse personality for stalkers. If you ever get the time, I'd like to sit down and pick your brain, you pick mine. I think there's a place for how to identify a stalker ahead of time, as well as a narcissist and others. And we're working on all of that in our norm therapy. Why aren't you a norm therapist? Are you a norm therapist? Did you go through norm therapy training?
no,
You
no.
are definitely one for the road here. You need to take, you definitely need to become one. But go ahead. What were you saying? Forgive me.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's
Like for a
okay.
second,
I'm
who
enjoying this
knows where I
conversation.
was going with that? But I know I was just saying it's misunderstood from our perspective, and I think too legally as well. I mean, look at what was said to me. There's no crime scene, and I think too the way technology is. I think the courts are always running behind on, good old fashioned stalking may have been one thing, but now with technology based, it's getting, the court's
Online
always running behind that.
bullying. You're probably being bullied. Uh,
Oh, he would try to find you. Right, that's another stalking tactic. While we have those last few minutes, is
mhm,
trying to seek you out on social media, or
mhm.
anything that may reveal your location. So make sure with those apps that you have, your location is turned off. Definitely to try to get a message from, try to get a message to you via a friend or one of theirs. That's still stalking as well. So, the last thing I would definitely want to make sure that I say while I have this time is, even though it is difficult, but we have to document our own abuse. You have to create those timelines, print out those text messages. They sent you flowers, you take a picture, you keep that card. You have got to build your own timeline of evidence and supports. And
Physical
although
evidence.
it, yes, and although it may be difficult, we owe ourselves the difficulty, because I think that is why, in part, I walked in and walked out with that protective order is because I showed up prepared with that timeline and with that evidence. So that's the one thing I would say. If you ever find yourself in this situation, you you find out where you
Document
need to
everything.
go ahead of time, and you show up prepared, you show up with that pattern of conduct and that evidence in your hands.
That is wonderful advice. Now we have a couple questions from the audience.
Oh, oh.
Okay, so in what ways did this stalking experience change you?
You know, it's I know it's a very peculiar thing to hear me say now, but it did change my trajectory. I mean, it helped me uh, take the voice that I believed I always had to a new level. So it's changed me in the way that I've just focused on, instead of why did this happen to me, what can I do to help other people? And it's changed me to the point where, look, I'm here talking to you and
An
having this
advocate, an advocate.
an advocate and having this conversation. So,
Absolutely, truly amazing. And we had another question for you. How has this changed the way you would advise dating, selecting who to date? What's that
right.
criteria look like now? What's going on
Well,
there?
it's always going to go back to trusting those instincts and never excusing red flags. I know we don't have much time, but those severe relationship red flags that are out there, someone who creates
Name some,
chaos or
name some, name
well,
some.
I would say anybody who plays the victim, everything is always someone else's fault or to blame. I would pay attention to any changing narratives or timelines, because if someone lies about the little things, it's because they have big things to hide. And I would be very mindful of what type of relationships do they have, because one thing we should be looking for in a partner is loyalty. Do they have any long-term friends, or what is their relationship like with their family? Are they building successful relationships around them? And if they're not, that's a red flag.
Big red flag. Big. You can't look in your past and find someone who's actually your friend and they treat you the way you want to be treated and you treat them the way they want to be treated. That's so reciprocal that people don't see the reciprocity that they need to find in these relationships. That
Hmm.
whatever you're giving into a relationship, it isn't reciprocal on some level or in another area. It's okay so long as that there's a compensating balance to bring it back to equilibrium. I think that people are ignoring those red flags. I can talk to you literally all day long. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, just you, to tell the audience as an active advocate of anti-stalking. Is it called anti-stalking before I start labeling
I,
something?
I always say stalking awareness, but
Okay.
yeah, anti-stalking, yes, because we don't, yeah, that makes
Yeah, we
sense
want to keep
too.
that away from us. But tell
Right.
us, as probably one of the biggest proponents in this area now, because this is something you don't hear a lot about. You just don't. And it was probably hard for you to go there and find something. I think you actually said that the judge and the prosecutor and the police officer all kind of changed your trajectory
Hmm.
in life and kind of further help you define it. So tell
Yes.
our potential stalking victims and people who have been stalked out there and people who want to prevent stalking in their lives, what it is about you that you can bring to the table to help them further articulate it and then do something about it.
Well, I would say to read the article, because I really did, stand up to stalking, which was on medium.com, because I really did go to the experts there. I went to a prosecutor,
Mhm.
who prosecutes this type of crime, and an advocate in the court. So I would recommend there, because that is step by step of what you need to do, from telling them to leave you alone, to documenting, to petitioning the court to focus on that safety and support. I would just tell everyone, you're not alone.
Mhm. Mhm.
This again, this can happen to anybody,
Absolutely. What about the police? What is their role in all of this? I want you to give me 30 seconds of, can the police be as useful as the prosecutor and the court system? How do
Yes,
you
we
make them useful?
You have to call them and you have to get them involved, and you have to provide them your documentation, because I still think to this day, part of the reason why there was a grand jury indictment is because they photocopied everything I brought that day.
Wow.
So, and you have to be, your own advocate because we talk about stand up to stalking, but you continue to stand up. So
Yes.
that's one thing to know, that in that moment you will stand up for yourself, and you will continue to do so, throughout. So, but the police in my situation, I can tell you that they were there to help, but maybe help them by providing that
You
documentation.
helped
And
them more
also,
than they helped you and to get
yes, and
their case together.
also, and one thing I learned, if you catch them watching you sitting outside, you videotape them while you're calling the authorities. So,
Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. Yes. Um, Live stream it better. So if anything happens, it's live. Yeah, it's live stream. I have to read this. Give me 1 second. Coming back. If you've enjoyed and got something out of today's session, please show your support by sharing this video, subscribing to our channel, commenting, of course, and liking it. Please go to goarrow.org, goaro.org, and normtherapy.com. Explore our opportunities and seek help for yourself, someone you care about, or identify something like stalking to the police or to us, and we'll get that message on to the authorities. But more importantly, if you want to become an expert like our friend here, Nicole Bialko, at some part of the abuse care community, please become a norm therapist. And I think you'll find, if you just email us at contact@normtherapy.com and let us know what your intentions are, we'll be more than happy to set you up for our next training session. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again Thursday, May 2nd at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll be interviewing our Global Executive Director of the Abuse Care Organization, Miss Kelly Dean. She's a level 7 norm therapist, and she's also, as I said, the co-founder of ERA. Wonderful lady. I love, and I get to interview her, and so it's going to be fun. Nicole, I really enjoyed you. I think you're an amazing human being. I love to see you in our norm therapy course. I think this could really, we have a very comprehensive course, of course, I think you know about. But talk to Kim Carpenter if you could. She's the manager of the norm therapy department, and stay safe. If I can give you any
thank
advice on a
you.
planet, keep being that shining example for other women and men to follow in this area of stalking. I think you can be one of our leading authorities in our society on this,
Oh,
because
thank
very few
you.
people can articulate what you've just done in a way that's effective. So thank you. You have
Oh,
anything to
thank
say to
thank
close us
you.
out? Go ahead.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to, just be here and once again spread my message. So thank you.
I enjoyed you. I enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you again around the water cooler. And good luck. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Be
Yep, we'll
safe.
see you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye, everyone. I enjoyed her.